For now, let's cross live to the Bahamas and day one of Afreximbank annual meeting event and the third of Afri-Caribbean Trade Forum. It's regarded as a reunion of Africans in the Caribbean diaspora. The 31st Afrexim annual meetings opened today, Wednesday, in the Bahamas with a sobering call to action for the two regions, that's Africa and the Caribbean, to unite on the front of trade and investment.
Geo-economic and geopolitical contexts emerge. Where do we position ourselves as a continent, leveraging on this market size that we have? So on the one hand, the continent has many challenges, but Africa's challenges are Africa's opportunities.
Yeah. Okay. And a final question to you as we wrap up. So you've got another 5 years. What will your priorities be? Because you spend so much time on the legal aspects, on the blueprinting, the crafting. Now it's time for doing. And I'm encouraged by the fact that the first consignment under AFCTA rules left our shores about 2 months ago. So it's actually happening. So what comes next?
The trading is happening. The first 4 years, as you correctly said, we had to construct the rules, which we have done. Now we are focusing on accelerating the implementation and the movement of the goods and the services. We started trading commercially meaningful trade in Ghana in October 2022. We started with 7 countries. This year in Rwanda, Kigali, there will be 38 African countries that will be trading a range of different products. Value-added production, by the way, a range of different products under the rules of the AFCFTA. So I often get asked the question, why is trading not happening? The answer I give is that trading is happening. It may not be the large volumes that we want to see. It may not be happening across a range of different products as much as we want to see, but it is happening, and we must always remember that the European Union started in 1947-48 as the European Coal and Steel Pact. It took them 72 years to be exactly where they are today. So we must expect that this will take time, it will take discipline, it will take political will, and we have all of those that are required for us to succeed.
So it's an ultra-marathon.
Absolutely.
Wamkele Mene, Secretary General of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
They wanted me to dance. They wanted us to dance. We can dance later. There's a cocktail party. Now, if you ask really any African, to define a person, to mention a person who defines the word industrialist, probably one name will come to mind. Dangote, Aliko Dangote, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, and when I think of his career, I'm reminded of the words of Nelson Mandela, who said, "It always seems impossible until it's done." The next session is entitled Using Industrial Transformation to Build Bridges, the Global Africa Vision and the Experience of the Dangote Group. And I welcome back to stage, fantastic moderator. Please give a warm welcome to Eleni Gyokas of CNN.
I don't really need to introduce my guest because I think Mark's done a fantastic job. Alhaji Aliko Dangote, one of the most inspirational people on the continent, industrializing Africa, investing so much across various sectors and also taking big risks in his personal capacity on projects he truly believes in, creating immense transformation, not only in his home country, Nigeria, but that creating an incredible domino effect, a positive effect on the rest of the African continent. If you walk through the halls and you see Aliko Dangote, you'll see a queue of people waiting to speak to him, to share ideas with him. Who's done that already today? Show of hands. I've seen so many of you. Alhaji Aliko Dangote, please join me on stage, sir. Nice to see you. Great. Take a seat. Alhaji, good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
I know we were in Lagos not too long ago.
Yes.
At your refinery. Has anyone seen the show on CNN with Alhaji? It was incredible.
I'm
so
sure.
I have to start with this because, you know, I was in Lagos at your refinery while it was still marshlands. And I saw it, you know, in the start of it, it was 2016.
Yes.
And going to it now, I just want the audience, I want everyone to understand how incredible it is and what it took for you. You had to be brave and bold. You took so many personal risks. And I don't think I think we shouldn't underestimate how much effort you and your teams put in. Looking back now and everything you've done thus far, how do you feel?
Well, I feel great, but we really went through tough times, also including COVID times, you know, so during the setting up of the, you know, refinery, when we thought about building the refinery, first of all, we really didn't have a clue of how huge this refinery is going to turn out to be. And I believe that was the reason why we went into building the refinery. If we knew what we are really going to get into, we wouldn't have started at all.
Is that a fact? Definitely, you wouldn't have done it?
No, really, it is a fact, you know, because, I mean, personally, I tell you, if you give me that opportunity to do it again, I don't think if I'm going to do it, because I think I developed all my gray hair within the last, within the last 5 years. I mean, it was really huge. We were facing one hurdle after the other. When we first started the idea, we started the idea a long time, 2013, which we signed agreements with the, you know, full of bankers. Some of the banks, yes, they came in, you know, gave us, you know, loan. We signed in September 2013. We went to one location. We had a problem with the governor there. So it took us 3.5 years to realize that, look, you know, we're just wasting our time. We left there. We went to another site. The site that we went there was also another issue with the community, you know, political issue, which, you know, sometimes it's a bit difficult to sort out. And we stayed there for another 1 year plus. When we sorted out that, then now it came about, we checked the land, you know, 70% of the land was a marshy land, so we had to now go and get what you call swamp boogies to remove all the trees. Just after doing that, because at that time we were busy doing the design. And what happened, you know, we were told that we need to raise the entire site. The site is about 2,685 hectares, which is almost about 34 million square meters of, you know, of land. Is huge. I mean, the fence around it alone is over 30 kilometers. So we decided to do the sand filling, and that one we had to bring in 4 of the biggest dredgers in the world.
Was that not a clue that it was going to be tough? Were you like, is this as tough as it's going to get?
I told you, if we knew, if we knew what we were getting into, we wouldn't have tried.
Because then you had to build ports, and this is the thing.
We had to do that, 65 tons of sand, And then they say, okay, we have to wait for 1 year. I say, hey, wait a minute, gentlemen, I don't have 1 year to wait. Is there any other alternative? So they gave us the alternative of what you call, compaction. So we had to bring in a Chinese firm to do what you call dynamic compaction. If we don't want to wait for the sun to settle, we went through that. And, after that, then we realized that all these equipment that were bought, which some of them are 3,000 tons of weight per piece, we had to build a special port because all the ports in Nigeria, they are so small to be able to handle the, the equipment. So we had to build a port.
So now you're going deeper into it. There's just, now you can't turn around.
Yeah, after building the port, then we realized that, look, hey, wait a minute, we also cannot remove them from the port to the site. So we had to build a special road that could carry weight of up to 3,000 tons. We finished that, then we thought about, okay, fine, well, the way we designed of getting the tankers to come and discharge the crude into that won't work. So we had to now run 125 kilometers of pipes through the sea.
Yeah.
And what you have, SPM, simple point mooring, put a big capacity where in a day, the crude can discharge 2 million barrels a day, each one. So we did that. And we finished that. Then we thought everything was fine.
We're over the worst, right?
Yes, over the worst. But then we now did what you call soil test. And in the soil test, it shows that we have the worst soil ever.
Just keeps getting better.
Yes, and then we have to do what you call piling. If you know, piling costs a lot of money.
Yes.
So we had to do 249,000 piles. That's almost 250,000 piles. I mean, we have a story building built in Lagos. It's about 18-story building, but we did only about 38 piles. So that's what we built, and then we realized that in Nigeria we didn't have the capacity for people to supply us with sand, with gravel, cement. Yes, we produce cement, so that wasn't a problem. But with these things, we have to now go and build a capacity to crush stones worth 800,000 tons per month, which now is equivalent to 10 million tons. And nobody had 10 million tons. Actually, we are the largest in the world in terms of quarry.
That's incredible.
Incredible.
I mean, I think to your point, you had to become the engineering, procurement, and construction company of your own refinery.
We did that
because there was no one that could help you.
Most of the EPCs, like the Bechtels and Co., none of them, they thought, first of all, to start with, that we are crazy, that, there are some crazy guys in town that, that are thinking about putting up a, refinery, and the kind of money that they are quoting, $25 billion and all this, so we said that no. So we took up the challenge, and we set up a team of 340 engineers in India. And we actually became the EPC, which means the engineering, procurement, and construction of the refinery. Every single bolt and nuts we bought. So we did everything A to Z, and it has never happened in this world.
It has never happened in this world.
Never.
I mean, this is.
And thank you. We realized that why we were so determined in doing the refinery, really, because we realized that in Africa, we have 54 countries in Africa, and the 54 countries that we have in Africa, only 2 are not importing their petroleum products, which is Algeria and Libya. They are the only 2 countries for now that they are not importing. But every single country in Africa depends on imported petroleum products.
And to your point, I mean, I remember just generally covering Nigeria, one of the lines we would always include is Nigeria exports raw crude and then re-imports it. And, that was creating the subsidy issue. I mean, there was just so many things that came with that.
And also polluting the environment.
And polluting. We're going to get into fuel quality in just a bit, but I want to ask you something, because I asked you this when we were in Nigeria, whether people wanted you to do this. Was there pushback? I mean, you said people were saying, oh, these crazy guys in town, but was there active push and lobby for you not to build this refinery?
I think the luck that we've had by getting the refinery done is because people believe that we're crazy, it will never happen. So I think the people who were sort of sabotaging us, they were less concerned because they knew that these guys have entered into something that they are going to be finished. So they didn't really bother much.
So they thought you were going to fail,
yeah,
essentially.
they thought that we were going to fail. And I must really thank a lot of our bankers for not panicking, you know.
Including Afreximbank, yes?
The issue is that, you know, I must say it, not because, I mean, President Orama is here, but I can tell you this refinery wouldn't have been possible without Afreximbank.
Yeah.
I think he's one person that has so much belief in the refinery himself, and then the other gentleman, he's late now, Herbert Wigwe of Access Bank. But with President Orama, he is actually more convinced than some of my staff. That's how, you know, yes. He's more convinced because when we took him there, both him and some of his board members, now they became so much sort of convinced that, look, this is the right way to go. And, you know, I must honestly tell you that, which I told you in the interview, even though I didn't see that part. I said that, you know, without the likes of Afreximbank, African Finance Corporation, it will be very difficult for us to industrialize.
Yeah.
You see, because the issue is that you need to go to banks that do understand your language, do understand your own issues, your program. Forget about all the other banks coming to us, they're only coming for taking us to the market, raising bonds, raising whatever, you know, and a lot of them, especially during the COVID, that they believe that we're going to stop somewhere. The COVID would have stopped us actually from constructing the refinery. They all left, but now they are coming back when they see that we're producing. Yeah, well, now the food is being cooked.
They've come to eat. They've come to eat
you know, yes, the food is cooked, is on the table. So I think, you know, but to tell you the truth, the setting of, I learned a lot. Because I know that 4 years ago, I was in Saudi Arabia during the fasting time. And I was invited for, you know, iftar, which is breaking of the fast.
Yeah.
And Dr. Fale, who used to be the Minister of Energy, invited me, you know, to just come and break the fasting with him. And I went there. So you just say, well, Aliko, I heard that you are planning on building a refinery. You know, what capacity? I said 650,000. He kept quiet for a while. I said, but you know, is it Jobel somewhere, just about 120 kilometers from Mecca, we're building one, and I think I would like you to go and have a look. We ourselves, as Saudi Aramco, were facing a lot of challenges, but anyway, we're proceeding with it. But my advice to you is not to do it.
Wow.
Because normally, refineries are built by major oil corporations or sovereign countries. I said, but Your Excellency, unfortunately, we have already started, so I'm not really looking for an advice. I said, Your Excellency, we have already started, I'm not really looking for an advice. So that was really how we continued. But you know, to tell you the truth, it was very, very scary.
It was scary. I wanted to ask you from a personal perspective, you know, what did it feel like when you realized, you know, it was just one issue after the next, and then you're building imports, then you have to buy all these cranes, and it was just, you know, the challenges compounding every single year and the price tag increasing to $19 billion, most of which was your money.
Yes. Well, you know, when you look at it, when we were building the refinery, first of all, we knew that, yes, if we had gone with the idea of doing a project financing, the international banks would have actually shut it down. Shut it down in the sense that they would have, maybe they might have asked me for my great-grandmother's certificate of birth, which I don't think I will be able to find it anywhere. So what we did was to go in terms of borrowing the money based on our own balance sheet. And borrowing based on our own balance sheet, you know, at that time, Naira was very strong, everything was strong. And that was how we went through. So we bought, we got the money, we borrowed the money based on our own balance sheet.
How much did you borrow at the
I
end
think
of it all?
we borrowed a total of about $5.5 billion. But I know we paid also a lot of interest as we go along because the project was delayed because of lack of land. You know, also the sand filling, you know, it took a long time, almost 6 years or so we didn't do anything. So it was actually, 5 years. It was actually in 2018 we started. We have borrowed that much. We have actually, of course, paid interest and some principal, about 2.4. So we had, well, yes, we've done very well. We now have only about 2.7 billion left to be paid. So we've done very well for a project of that magnitude.
Amazing. I also want to talk practically what this means. You know, Nigeria, exporting its raw crude, and now I want to talk about how you've disrupted the value chains, the supply chains in Nigeria, and whether the local oil producers, even the IOCs, are selling their crude fully to you, and what that means for the supply chain of refined products into Nigeria, and whether there's been pushback. There's a lot of questions there, but you know where I'm going with this.
Well, you know, Eleni, you know, in a system where for 35 years people are used to counting good money, and all of a sudden they see that the days of counting that money has come to an end. You don't expect them to pray for you. Of course, you expect them, you expect them to fight back. And I think that is the process that we are now really going through. But the truth is that, yes, the country, the sub-region, and also the continent, sub-Saharan Africa, need this refinery. And I think, you know, so you expect them to fight through non-supply of crude, non-purchase of the product, but I think it's all temporary. You know, we'll get there.
Did you price in the fighting back? Did you think that was going to happen?
But I didn't price. Well, I knew that there would be a fight, but I didn't know that you know, the mafia in oil, they are stronger than mafia in drugs.
Just to repeat that, mafia and oil are stronger than the mafia and drugs.
I can tell you.
Is that a fact?
Yes, it's a fact.
Did you know the mafia and oil existed before you got into this?
I know that, you know, yes, they existed, but not as strong as the way that I've faced them. You know, I mean, they're very strong.
Is this a global mafia? Is it
both?
Is it local mafia?
There's a local one, there's a global one, so it's all mixed up. It's all mixed up.
It's a mix, and then did they try and sabotage you in any
They tried all sorts. But you know, like what I told you in our interview, I told you that, you know, I'm a person that I've been fighting all my life. You know, so I think it's part of my life to fight.
And you've won this fight, clearly. Have you won this fight? Is it over?
I think eventually we won't. We'll end up winning. You know why? Because the population and the government will be on our side. Because what we are doing is right.
You know, there's one thing that I get concerned about when I hear things like the oil mafia or the international traders or whatever may be trying to interfere with Africa industrializing. It's not just with your oil refinery. You know, it's a lot of other industries that get pushed back there. You know, and I ask this question, I think you're the best person to ask. Does the world that is benefiting from quality raw commodities want the continent to truly industrialize, where you move industrialization into Africa? And how much pushback have you really seen on this path and journey?
Well, there is quite a pushback. First of all, you have heard what Jeffrey Sachs said. What he said, is that I don't believe if the West want us to progress in terms of industrialization. Industrialization is something that is the basic that we need. We need to produce what we consume.
Yeah.
But I don't think if there's any support coming from the West. As a matter of fact, during the COVID period, some of the international banks really were looking forward to making sure that they push us into default of our loans so that the project will just be dead. And that didn't happen with the help of banks like Afreximbank.
President Orama with us today.
So, that's what I keep saying, that look, for us, I think we need to make sure we get together as, Africans. And then also, I must thank President Orama of Afreximbank with his management in trying to bring Africa and the Caribbean to sort of work together, because that will be fantastic in terms of our growth.
Well, you're here, which means...
Yeah, yes.
I'm wondering what conversations you're having and what you're thinking about this Afro-Caribbean.
We produce quite a lot.
Yeah.
Because if you look at it now, I don't know the exact price, but I know the price in the Caribbean in terms of petroleum product is very high. So we produce it cheap. We can always bring it here. We can set up a terminal, and we'll be able to feed their needs.
So what do you need to make that happen? In terms of tariffs, bilateral agreements, what do you need from a policy perspective?
We'll have a bilateral agreements with them, and also, bringing in stuff from there is not more than 18, 20 days maximum. And then we need to set up a terminal. Once we set up a terminal, they will have a very, very cheap oil. They will have a cheap energy. And by having cheap energy, their own economies will grow faster.
It sounds like you're really going to upset the oil mafia.
Well, it's not only about the oil. We now have a capacity of almost 52 million. By end of next year, we'll be at 62 million of cement capacity. And we are not only saying that we can import, we can bring in from Nigeria or from Africa. If they have limestone with energy here, we can also produce what can satisfy them. We've done that before in Africa, and we should be able to free them off from the shackles of other people.
Brilliant. It would be remiss of me not to ask, what's the timeline on that, do you think?
If we have the ingredients, the limestone, additives, and level of power, it's a 28 months maximum. So 8 months maximum, they can all be self-sufficient. They don't have anybody to hold their neck in terms of squeezing them, making them to pay an arm and a leg.
Yeah, I love this.
Yes.
Who's squeezing the necks? You're giving me so much, I'm going to keep on prodding. Can you give us names? I need names. Okay.
But that's also, like what I said, 25% of our fertilizer that we produce goes to the U.S.
Yeah.
So instead of, we'll take some to the U.S. and we can fully satisfy the needs of the Caribbean countries in terms of urea, and we're going to get into phosphate and potash. So definitely we want to have that kind of cooperation with them so that, they will believe that, yes, President Orama taking them and bringing Africa with the Caribbean countries together, makes sense. And it's going to really make sense going forward. I mean, it's not going to be a free stuff, but everybody will be happy. It will be a win-win between us and them. And then it will also open up, because, I haven't been to Bahamas for maybe about 32 years or so. But what I've seen here, I came here to spend only a day. I was supposed to leave this evening. Okay, President Orama said, no, we should stay. So I think I'm also enjoying the place, so I'll be here till Friday.
I want this to sink in because Alaji said something important, that Nigerian-made fertilizer, finished, packaged completely,
Yes.
is being exported
Urea.
to the United States.
US, Brazil,
And that is
Mexico.
amazing. That is
Yeah.
a finished product from the continent being exported to the US.
Yes.
You know, it's these stories that are phenomenal, and you think about how much more can be done. How many Nigerians in the room? Show of hands. Okay, you're going to appreciate this question.
Yes.
The subsidies have been removed. You know, petrol's expensive, yes?
Fertilizer,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
There's no subsidy in fertilizer at all.
No,
but
not in fertilizer, but I'm talking petrol now.
Okay.
Okay, so I want to ask, because now we know there's lots of Nigerians, and there is an important question. With your refinery, is that going to help bring down the prices at the pump for our fellow Nigerians here?
The issue of gasoline is totally a different issue. That's one is being dealt up by the government. But let me give you an example. In the diesel, which is where the industries, transporters, and everybody consume. When we first started, it was at 1,700 naira, and the conversion is about maybe 1,200 then. And immediately when we started, we brought down, within 2 weeks, we brought down the price to 1,000 naira. We took it to 1,200, from 1,200 to so we have given more than 60%, drop in price. But even now, with the currency back up to about 1,500, the price of diesel is still below 1,200. So there's a big improvement from 1,700 to 1,200.
That's incredible. So let's play out the scenario.
It's available,
available.
So we're not living hand to mouth anymore. And the country doesn't have strategic reserves in terms of petroleum, which is very dangerous.
It is.
But in our own plant now, when you came,
Yeah.
we had only 4.78 billion liters of various, tankage capacity. But right now, we're adding another 600 million. So effectively, as we go forward, the refinery will be the strategic reserve of the country.
Brilliant.
In terms of petroleum products.
There's something, we were talking, and you wanted to talk about fuel quality in Africa. And I mean, I don't know how many of you here in the audience know that there's something called, African quality.
Yes.
African quality fuel. And you know what that is? Very dirty, very polluting fuel.
Yes,
High
it is very
sulfur.
high sulfur,
So what's happening
very
there?
polluting, and also when you look at it, that's why especially in Nigeria, of recently, in the last few years, we've been having cases of cancer.
Yes.
And most of these cancer cases, they are to do with the bad fuel that we've been using. So I will advise even here, you should check the quality, what is being dumped in your own region, in the Caribbean. Because quality is key, is very, very important. You can see, last 2.5 weeks or so, the Belgian government banned export of anything over and above 10 ppm, because that is what they consume. What they said, okay, fine, from Antwerp, nobody is allowed to export what we don't consume domestically, which is very good.
So just so you understand, it's 10 parts per million of sulfur.
Yes.
So what is the parts per million of sulfur in African quality fuel?
We bought one in June from one of the trading companies, and it was actually 3,000.
3,000.
Yes.
So now you get into this business, you realize that the fuel quality is really awful coming into the continent. So just so we understand the supply chain, Nigeria exports good quality raw crude and re-imports.
In fact, Nigeria's crude attracts the most premium.
The most premium.
So that's how good.
And yet imports the dirtiest.
The dirtiest, yes.
I don't even know what to say on that.
Well,
Is that regulation?
Most of the other, it's not regulation, but now there's regulation, so it is, upon the regulator to enforce the regulation.
And it's very important to do that. There's, again, the trading companies that are doing this, and the contradiction and the hypocrisy on climate change. And
both local, international, yes.
And all of that. One of the titles here that we're looking at is Global Africa and what that means. and what that means for the continent and a unified African voice on the global stage. What does that mean for you?
I think it means a lot, because when you look at it, majority of Western world, when they want to do agreements, they try to do what you call divide and rule, rather than they, agreeing with either East African Union to have one single agreement. They go to the weaker countries and sign an agreement that is not favorable. And what I would like to see is for us to now have a very strong Africa, where now the intra-trade is going to be at about 65–70%. Because you see, what they have done and what they have achieved to do is to make sure that, yes, they encourage us to disagree with each other, which is not right. Because today, you are saying that, okay, fine, you want to stop. I mean, it's like what I told you last 2 weeks in Rwanda. We are sitting having a chat with the French guy, Patrick Pouyanné,
yeah.
yes, who run Total. I say, Patrick, as a French citizen, he has more access to Africa than myself. So, and when you are talking about a small company, we too, by this year, with the help of our banks, will reach a stage where hopefully, our turnover, our revenue will be in the excess of $30 billion. But I need visas all over the place.
How many visas do you have in your passport right now?
I need about 35.
35 visas to
Yes.
travel across Africa as Aliko Dangote.
Yes.
Yes. There's no hope for us.
Well,
If you can't get into African countries,
I can tell you something. We are doing something, we in the private sector, and I think we're going to challenge some of our leaders to make sure that we remove all this thing about borders, about free movement of people, free movement of goods. And
do you believe that can be done? I mean, we were listening to His Excellency Wamkele Mene before this conversation. Do you agree what he says, that it's going to take time if you compare it to how long it took Europe?
I think, no. I really don't agree with His Excellency Wamkele because time has changed. Things now are on a very fast track. Already we have what you call the regional markets. So once the regional markets, if they work, we should make them to work. Because if you go to like ECOWAS, yes, ECOWAS is working, but maybe we have one country who is, that's messing around here and there. But we can sit down and talk to them. The benefit of having an AFCTA. Having an AFCTA is going to help a lot of these smaller countries, whereby when they produce goods, they have market for it. I mean, like now I was telling somebody came to my house last few days, and he said, oh, you have very nice flowers. I say, yes, I'm sure they are from Kenya or Ethiopia. But the guy who normally brings them, he brings them from Antwerp.
Wow.
Which is wrong. So they carry all these things from Africa, take them to Europe. From Europe, now they bring them and distribute them within Africa. And there's one saying, that they always say, look, when you import things into your country, you are importing poverty, exporting jobs out. So we have to stop it.
I totally agree. We've been covering these stories so much, and it just, what is it going to take? It's the border posts. I mean, there's so many things that need to happen. And of course, President Harama and his team are doing what they can, but policy needs to trail, and it needs to happen quickly. Because border posts are a disaster. I mean,
it can happen, so what does it cost now? For example, you say, okay, fine, all Africans moving in Africa, they should even get visa on arrival. You have already done that to the Canadians, you've done that to the British, you've done that to the European Union and Americans. Why are we different? Why should I now go and apply for a visa?
Because it's sad, because these passports hold better currency than African passports.
It's not about currency.
And it's like, how do we change that perception of ourselves on the
It's
continent?
not about currency. Most likely, if I go to let me not say Rwanda, but if I go to maybe Angola, I might end up spending more money than a British person who has a budget. I might not have a budget. Maybe I'll go there and spend more money.
Yeah, that's true.
But they're asking me,
It's
you
like
know,
a bit
and
of
they're
value.
asking me to get a visa. He might not invest. You know, and what I keep telling people is that, look, we as Africans, please, don't be deceived. No foreigner can come and make your continent great.
Yeah.
It must be the domestic investors. Domestic investment is what actually attracts foreign investment.
So there are a lot of South African companies that have failed in Nigeria. You know this, right?
A lot, yeah.
A lot.
You know, yes.
But you've also, and I want to repeat something you said a while back. Nigeria is one of the best kept secrets. A lot of foreigners are not investing because they're waiting for the right time. There is no right time. Do you still stand by that?
I still stand by that. There's
Still
no
stand-
really right time. No right time.
There's no right time.
No right time. Because if you get there, you should do your proper investigation. You should do your research. You should talk to credible bankers. They will advise you of what to do and what not to do. So I'm sure, you know, fine. And as we go along, I'm sure that our bankers are also going to recapitalize and make sure that, yes, to make sure that we don't need international banks because they are not going to add any value. I would like to see in the next 2-3 years, Afreximbank should double their capital. African Finance Corporation should double their capital. Once they do that, then we have real partnership to be able to make Africa great.
You know, I didn't mention this. I also went to the cement plant.
Yeah.
Your cement plant was fantastic. I was very excited there. I have
You
to
went
say.
there, yes.
I did, I went. And you said that that cement plant in particular produces more cement than the whole of South Africa.
That particular one
That-
location,
yes.
we produce more cement than South Africa,
So,
yes.
so the other thing I wanted to mention is going to all your sites is that you generate your own electricity. So you don't put pressure on the grid.
No, we
So-
don't.
So when we're talking about truly industrializing the continent and people here wanting to become industrialists, you have to start becoming energy independent and efficient when you're doing this, right?
You see, the issue is that, like us now, we produce about 1,500 megawatts of power for self-consumption. But if this thing is beneficial and it makes sense, there will be people who will concentrate on actually generating the power, so it won't be part of your cost. There are a lot of people that are doing industrial parks, and I think also Afreximbank is involved in industrial, parks, in terms of funding. So that will help. So
Yeah.
it means that once you come, you are just going to plug and play.
There's a plan. Okay, there's a lot of people in this room that want to have conversations with you. I know this because if you walk with Alaji, you know that everyone wants to pitch a story or an idea. And there's, I meet a lot of people going, what do you want to be? What do you want to do? I want to become like Aliko Dangote. So how do we become like you? What does it take? Spill the beans.
First of all, they have to understand what they are doing. You have to understand your own business. You cannot do everything by yourself. So you have to be very, very focused. You have to be, tough because it's not easy. Being in business is not a child's play. So you have to have the vision and right from the beginning, and also see how you can actually actualize your vision. With this, do we have any hope in Africa? Of course. You have 1.4 billion people. And most of the economies in Africa, they're actually doing extremely well. So what we need to do that is missing is actually to concentrate and pay more attention to agriculture, solid minerals. I don't like people coming to take our solid minerals to process and bring the finished product. We should try and industrialize our continent. And that will take us to the next level.
So what's next? Are you taking a break after the refinery in terms of
No,
building anything
we are
new?
not taking.
for
I
now?
told somebody we are not going to take the, any break. What we are trying to do is to make sure, at least West Africa, we want to make sure that every single steel that we use will come from Nigeria.
Fantastic. Alaji, thank you so much.
Thank you
It was
very much.
such an honor to have you with me today, and always good to speak to you.
Thank you so much, and I must thank President Orama, the board and management of Afreximbank for inviting me to come here. I think it's a long journey, but it is worth it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen. Ladies and gentlemen, we're not finished yet, so if you could take your seats, we're almost finished. We have two more things, two quick things on the agenda, and then the end of day one. So the program is still live, and we're going to move on now to a deal signing. So if I could please ask you to take your seats. It's not finished yet. The program is still continuing. Now, deal number 3. And this deal is for 443 million US dollars. I got your attention there, right? 443 million US dollars a signing. So I'm going to first tell you what the signing is and tell you who's signing. Ladies and gentlemen, please, if I could have your attention, please. Can I have a bell? Anyone? I'm competing. The gentleman there in white, I'm going to start pointing people out. Could you please sit down? The lady there over there in black, yes, can sit down, it's you. This gentleman here with a red tie, you can sit down as well. No, I will. If I know your name, I'll say your name. So could everybody here at the front please take a seat? So we are going to finish the program with a signing and then we have a closing remarks. The signing is the facility agreement for Energias is the largest private Angolan oil company. It plays a pivotal role in the country's energy scene. So please go ahead, do the necessary. Let me tell you exactly what they're signing now. The facility will be used for local acquisition of strategic petroleum assets in Angola. You can please go ahead and begin your signing. Don't worry about the cameras. They'll tell you there's pictures afterwards. Just go ahead, please, and put your John Hancocks on those documents. So this is a facility that will be used for the local acquisition of strategic petroleum assets in Angola with Etu Energias, which is the largest private Angolan oil company. The deal size, as I said, is 443 million US dollars. And you're witnessing Mr. Edson dos Santos, who's the CEO of Etu Energias, and our own Haytham El Mayergi of Afreximbank doing the needful. As I mentioned, this facility will be used for the local acquisition of strategic petroleum assets in Angola. The deal is done. The 443 million US dollar deal is done between Etu Energias of Angola and Afreximbank. Congratulations, gentlemen. Congratulations, everyone. Okay, I'm going to quickly move on. As we move the furniture, one last thing to do. Now, Now, ladies and gentlemen, one last speaker. I grew up in a city that I love more than any city in the world. That city is Lagos, Lagos in Nigeria. It's a mega city by anybody's standards. More than 20 million people live, work, and breathe in Lagos State, Nigeria. We are so honored to have the closing remarks from an urban champion and a local leader, which is, of course, cities are the heartbeats of everything that we really do. So we're very, very pleased to who's come all the way from Lagos to the Bahamas. So I want you to give a warm round of applause because the closing remarks are from His Excellency, the Executive Governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I know that I haven't listened to the biggest and the greatest investor in Africa, Alhaji Aliko Dangote. It's actually very difficult for a poor politician like myself to be asked to come and speak again. But you know, it's a different time. And one thing that is common between Alhaji Aliko and myself is that all of the investment that we've all had to clap and do all of the great things this evening are cited in my city. And we're excited that Lagos, even with all the challenges that they had to deal with, having moved 3 locations, now finally settling in to Lagos, we've been able to demonstrate to him what ease of doing business is all about, and we're happy that that infrastructure, it's a testament of what an African and Nigerian can do. So on behalf of the people of Lagos, let's give him another round of applause. Distinguished audience, I'm indeed very excited and happy this evening that you've given me an honor to give a brief remark. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to address this closing remark on the opening day of the 31st Afrexim annual meeting at the 3rd African Caribbean Trade Investment Forum. Like I said, we've just witnessed the most compelling and inspiring day of celebration and conversation. We've seen powerful cultural performance here today, and we've seen powerful insight about living and thriving in a world of polycrisis. We have also seen the highlights of a remarkable African and a Caribbean success story in the business world, including from our own very Alhaji Aliko Dangote of the Dangote Group. Alhaji modestly has transcended national boundaries in a way that many Africans have been unable to do. This makes him a pioneering force and a great and a distinguished continental ambassador. Earlier today as well, I had the privilege of watching Alhaji Dangote on the side with some of our Caribbean leaders here, how he was able to stimulate them, how he was able to show them, all of the things that he's done, and the discussions focused on ways in which we believe that we can deepen and integrate trade agenda between Africa and the Caribbean. Still earlier today, I had watched Eleni warmly conduct our session on strategies for global Africa and found the issues deliberated on the panel very interesting, thought-provoking, and very engaging. Interestingly, I found their perspective on localizing solutions to Africa problems to resonate deeply with our own views. The importance of African financial and payment systems that prioritize our local currencies cannot be overemphasized. I know that this is something Afreximbank is at the forefront of through the establishment of the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System, PAPPS. I am also aware of the ongoing advocacy by African multilateral development banks for the reform of a global financial architecture to ensure that Africa has a more prominent seat at the table and a more prominent voice in deciding on the matters that affect us the most. Also worth highlighting is the recent addition of the African Union as a 21st member of the G20 bloc. All of these are signs of progress, but they are certainly not enough, and they should not satisfy us. We must push for and work for a more fundamental reforms and a reordering of a global economic system. In all, we have seen a most exciting day one at the Afreximbank 2024 annual meeting. Now I stand before you to wrap up the day by speaking on the role of subnationals in driving global African agenda, and I believe lessons from Lagos will help us here. I'm especially excited by the opportunity because the telling and amplifying the African economic narrative has largely been driven at the sovereign level. Those conversations typically start and stay at that level, focus on nations and nations' borders, discussions about African politics, GDP growth, economic influence, migration, security, and so on. They all tend to center around the countries. We have not seen as much effort going into examining the roles and contribution of subnational governments to development of African narratives in the 21st century era. And yet, it is at this level of cities, of states, of counties, and subnational that a lot of the most remarkable reforms and transformational agendas are taking place. And when we focus only on the national level, we miss out on a lot of trends and lessons that could be very useful in helping chart the journey to a future of sustainable prosperity and social economic transformation. Taking Lagos, for example, a unique African story shaped by an interesting mix of advantages and challenges. By the way, for context, I speak with you today as a democratically elected governor of the state, having had the rare opportunity to be in my 5th year of an 8-year journey. Thank you. Lagos State is one of Nigeria's 36 states, and we're responsible for more than over a third of the nation's entire GDP. In fact, we have a GDP that is greater than all but 7 African countries. In the last 5 years, and under my leadership, we have seen almost a 50% growth increase in our GDP in Lagos alone. We also account for about half of the country's total energy demand. We have over 70% of Nigerians' foreign trade inflow into Lagos. And unlike most other subnational governments in Nigeria, over 75% of our revenues are generated internally as opposed to being centrally collected from the national treasury. Lagos happens to be the most populated city, not just in Nigeria, but also in the entire continent of Africa. For context, Lagos is 40 times the size of Bahamas, population-wise. However, Bahamas is 3 times the size of Lagos in terms of land mass. This, of course, makes us densely populated and highly urbanized. In all of the various challenges are huge opportunities, and strategic relevance of Lagos has to the largest country in Africa, Nigeria. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the first question that comes to mind and requires examination is regarding the global African agenda. What is this global African agenda? The global African agenda is about the rightful place of Africa in the 21st century, based on our potential and on our people. It is about seeing ourselves for what we can and should be, taking stock of all our pluses and minuses, and marching forward into the 21st century with the determination to write our own stories ourselves. And I think Aliko has demonstrated that here today, and with all of the great leaders that have come forward, we need to write our stories ourselves. This is rooted in a Pan-African ideal of unity, self-determination, freedom, progress, and a collective prosperity, and powerfully encapsulated by the African Union Agenda 2063, which prioritizes social and economic development, regional integration, democratic governance, and peace and security are some of the things we need to be doing right. As we therefore look forward to this aspiration, it is clear that sovereign entities like ourselves, where we have the cities, the states, the provinces, the regions, and the municipalities, are instrumental in translating these high-level goals into tangible outcomes. I'm here to tell you how subnational governments are vital in writing the story and advancing the agenda. And I will use the example of Lagos, which I'm of course very familiar with. I will tell you 5 quick stories to illustrate this, and I'll share the stories first. And then I'll tell you what they mean and why they are important to global African agenda. The first is about climate change and environmental issues. It is also about a project called the Eco-Atlantic City in Lagos. And it must know it's a city that has now come out from the Atlantic Ocean, the Gulf of Guinea, which puts us at the mercy of rising sea level and means that without external intervention, some part of the city will have disappeared underwater, and in the decades we will not have that part of Lagos again. We have lived with this existential threat for a long time, and then we decided to take our destiny into our hands. Coincidentally, under the leadership of my predecessor, who now happens to be the president of the country, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Lagos championed 2-level ambitious interlinked projects. One, a massive reclamation of the Atlantic Ocean to reduce land lost over the course of the century to the ravaging surge of the ocean. And two, the construction of what is now known as the Great Wall of Lagos, almost 10-kilometer long stone and concrete barrier to protect the coastline. That project allowed us to create a brand new city, the Eco-Atlantic City, which has since then become a global model for environmentally responsive and climate action city. And that even predates the Paris climate agenda, meaning Lagos was getting something right even before the Paris climate agenda. And so in prioritizing environmental sustainability and energy efficiency, the Eco-Atlantic City has become a model for how African governments can respond to the multifaceted challenges of climate change. The second story is about the Lekki Deep-Sea Port, which commenced commercial operation about a year ago. It's the newest and the most modern port in sub-Saharan Africa, and by extension is the first deep-sea port in Nigeria. Lagos boldly takes about 20% stake in this billion-dollar joint venture project, and we're prominent with international financial bodies to process and to lead this new port. The Lekki Deep-Sea Port is one that is set to bolster Nigeria's trade and create a potential and a competitive edge as positioning what we've all discussed here today, the benefit of the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, Area Agreement, AFCTFTA. I'm also proud to say that we in Lagos have indeed mastered the art and the science of public-private partnership. Having pioneered this in Lagos, we're now exporting this template to other parts of the country. The third story is about what we call the Lekki Free Trade Zone. Today, this area is one of the fastest growing industrial hubs in Africa. It's home to the largest single train refinery. It's also home to the seaport that I mentioned. The vision of this zone originated more than a decade ago, at a time when ambitious and futuristic ideas like this were not associated in Africa. Today, The zone has inspired several others across Nigeria, and it is transforming not only the Nigerian economy, but that of the West Africa in total. The fourth story is what I leave with you today. It's about a large-scale infrastructural redevelopment that we have in Lagos. I will start with the Lagos-Badagry Express Road, which is a section of a highway that runs through 5 countries. Lagos will take you all the way to Abidjan. The highway is intended to push from Nigeria to Benin, to Togo, to Ghana, and to Abidjan, and to Côte d'Ivoire. But it is such a vital connector of Lagos State to the rest of the region and a critical enabler of regional integration that we as a state decided to step up and champion the expansion of and upgraded this road to support our federal government and to nudge them into devoting more resources and attention to this corridor. Today, as I speak, much of the new 10-lane reconstructed highway are now in place, and this includes an alignment for our ongoing citywide Metro Rail project. That's another story. The Metro Rail, known officially as the Lagos Rail Mass Transit, comprises a total of 7 colored coded lines. Upon completion, it has over 300 kilometers of rail connectivity within Lagos. And we have actually completed the first phase of the blue line and the red line. When these 2 rails are fully completed, it will be carrying over 1.2 million passengers per day on the 2 lines alone. The 5th one, which is most interesting to me, is about the power of the young people in driving creativity, innovation, and digital connectivity, all critical pillars for the economic prosperity of Africa. Lagos, as in the last decade, became a globally renowned hub for digital technology and innovation. And this is because of our young people and their energy, their talent, their enthusiasm. I personally believe that subnational governments are much better placed than national government to understand the young people and their ideas so that we can support them to achieve their dreams and aspirations. And as we know, the extent to which the achievements of global African agenda is tied to the young Africans. Africa is the world's youngest continent and will continue to be into the foreseeable future. With a mean age of about 20, it is also clear that Africa will provide the bulk of the labor force required by the entire world in the 21st century. Sociologists are calling it the youth quake. And in October 2023, the New York Times published a viral piece titled, "The World is Becoming More African." Indeed, we have gone from Africa, the hopeless continent, to the world is becoming more African. In just less than 25 years, we are just getting started. We have minted a number of fintech unicorns like InterSwitch, Paystack, Florida Waves. They are just the best of the known of several technology startups cutting across the sector of our economy, in agriculture, in healthcare, education, and a lot more. This ferment of innovation has not happened by chance, even if it has been led and driven by immensely talented and entrepreneurial young Nigerians. Successive administration in Lagos State have paid very careful and close attention to those ecosystems and worked to ensure an enabling environment through various policies, programs, and incentives for that bracket of our citizens. Today, ladies and gentlemen, Lagos is fast growing into a data center hub, attracting millions of dollars of local and foreign investment in that area. Just a few months ago, the longest fiber optic submarine cable system in the world, known as 2Africa, landed on the shores of Lagos. What this means is that as Africa steps up to become a global source of service export, Lagos is very well positioned to take the lead. We have the talent, we have the infrastructure, and we're putting all the right policies in place. So what do we see from these 5 examples that I've cited to us? They speak of bold and ambitious vision. At subnational level, a state government taking on projects and challenges that are typically associated with national governments and national budgets. They speak of the power of partnerships, partnership between national and subnational governments, and between public and the private sector. The real power of subnational government lies in understanding the leverage and the synergy, understanding that when you are open to cooperation, there are limits to what you can achieve. Finally, this story speaks of the importance of African solution and African capacity of tackling African problems. They highlight the necessity of self-confidence, on believing in the ideas and the approaches, and of understanding our external help can only function as an add-on or a bonus and can never replace the internal leadership and the direction required to advance the cause of the African continent. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, this now takes me to the landmark African Continental Free Trade Agreement, one of the most important African-driven initiatives in our history. His Excellency Mele has spoken about it today. Alhaji Aliko has also spoken about it today. It's a revolution whose idea will seek to unleash the power of the world's largest free trade area in terms of numbers of participating countries. The AFCTA is an idea whose success depends on all of the elements I've previously outlined. We must have modern ports, functional industrial zones, ambitious transnational highways, and endless evolution and unleashing of digital technology, of all of which will enable for an efficient flow of high-level goods and services across our borders. But guess what? The developed nations do not want it to work. They do not want us to trade and create value amongst ourselves. They do not want us to forge this united African trade channel. All of these projects in progress should be seen as fundamental building blocks for an integrated African economy of the 21st century. The pillars upon which African Union's overreaching agenda of 2063 will be constructed. Lagos truly offers an inspiring model of what is possible when Africa thinks big and thinks ahead. In the near future, our ambition is to, in addition to what we have already accomplished, become a strong and a solid link between Africa and the Caribbean, building on long-lasting historic connection and modernizing them into a partnership that is an unstoppable global force. We already have so much in common, and if we synergize properly, there is no limit to how far we can go. And this is where Afreximbank comes in, an inspiration. They are an enabler, they are a facilitator, and they are a financier. Already, they have established themselves as an excellent facilitator of bridge building Africa and the Caribbean. Let us all applaud the courage and the drive by the current leadership of the bank. You need to double the numbers now. We've given you all the applause. The rain has started falling. You need to double up and be able to double that balance sheet because we need it more than ever before. I therefore commend Afreximbank for their dedication to transforming the African trade, the investment and the cultural narrative. And in this same vein, I must also acknowledge the excellent enabling work you are doing with CANEX initiative to support Africa's creative and cultural industries. You have also been very supportive of our development agenda for us in Lagos State. We count on you as strategic partner and as friend, and we look forward to forging even deeper partnership in the months and the years ahead. We believe this will be for the benefit of not only our city, of not only our country, but will be for the entire African continent and the whole world at large. We believe that together we can build a purposeful and a sustainable future for us. And we believe in that future, Afreximbank plays a prominent role. I want to thank you for this opportunity to share these few insights, and I look forward to a continued conversation and collaboration with you. Thank you very much for listening.
Babajide Samuel Olu, Jeffrey Sachs, Aliko Dangote, amazing speakers. Let's give all the speakers a round of applause, please. Tomorrow is going to be an amazing day. In fact, I see the Deputy Prime Minister of the Bahamas, Honorable I. Chester Cooper, here with us. The Prime Minister of Bahamas will be leading 48 heads of states, former heads of states and representatives in tomorrow's presidential opening. 48, I think that's a record for me. It's amazing. Tomorrow is an incredible day. Please be here by 9 a.m. to grab your seat. Otherwise, you might not get one, even though there are 2,500 seats in this auditorium. But right now, actually, I think you've earned a break. You know, you've earned, if you have hair, to let your hair down, right? So, just outside, there are ushers who will take you. Don't go yet. Let me tell you where you're going. Just outside, there are ushers that will take you back to the lunch marquee where there's a cocktail reception. There is a live band, there's the Jonkanu dancers, and there's one of Nigeria's greatest DJs, DJ Kapi, who will entertain you. So without much ado, I can say until tomorrow at 9 a.m. that concludes day one of the 31st annual Afreximbank meetings and the third Afri-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum.